Hi, this is Jackey Neyman Jones, Debbie in Manos, The Hands of Fate, and you are listening to the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the movie raid, and tonight's victim is artist, actress Jackey Raye Neyman Jones, playing the Manos, The Hands of Fate. Manos returns. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. So what have we got going on recently? Anything we can check out right now, or anything that's about to be released?
Look up trailer on YouTube for the Manos Chronicles. It's a new web series we're working on, and we've filmed the pilot episode. As I understand at this point, it's just in all final phases, pretty much done as far as all the editing and special effects and talking to potential distributors. And so I'm just really looking forward to getting that out there. There's Richard Park's trading card series. He does lots of pop culture trading cards, and he's working on his second Manos, The Hands of Fate series. So I have a stack of metal cards right here, signing 150 of them for him. The woman who played my mother in the original Manos, she's signing that many herself, and they fit together. It's like the master and dog painting in the center. So it's kind of a special part of the card series. And gosh, I'm just starting a new artist co-op. We're going to do classes. I teach painting classes anyway, so we're going to be doing children's classes. We're working on some grants for some scholarship programs for families that can't afford it.
Manos is beamed from something that was, wasn't as favorable, but has become its own thing. And having reprising your role in several of the sequels itself, was taking this role more to give a better opportunity in terms of reprising it to develop than the limitations that you had performing in the original film?
Well, it's just, Manos is such an interesting thing because we filmed it and everybody at the time, even 6-year-old me, knew that it wasn't very good. But Hal Warren, who created the film, wasn't really out to make a good film. And he was more out to make a name for himself and bring attention to the Southwest and the potential for making film. He was hoping to be the guy that brought the film industry to the Southwest because it was filmed in El Paso, Texas in 1966. So it was so bad. I mean, it was worse than anybody expected, and so the theater canceled the run of the show after the premiere, and then it disappeared for 27 years. I mean, I grew up with these wonderful memories of being part of this thing with my dad, who I adored, and 27 years go by, Mystery Science Theater found it and put it on, and it became an instant hit, and right away it's been voted several times as the fan favorite, but it's also still on the list. It's was known as the worst movie ever made. I was actually interviewed in 2015, 7-page article in Playboy magazine, the battle over the worst movie ever made. But now it's still on the top 5 list, and it's been taught in film school as everything not to do in filmmaking. But the most amazing thing about it, and that particular fan base, the Mystery Science Theater fan base, is that they're nerds, they're intelligent, they're educated, they're creative, and because of this crazy film, so many really talented projects have been inspired by it, like Manos, The Hands of Felt, puppet theater out of Seattle. That's Rachel Jackson, who is also friends and part of cohorts in some of the projects with Michelle Nesk, who you just interviewed, and Tanya Atomic, who you're going to be interviewing. So I know all these amazing people because of this crazy movie and the projects that are coming about and that have happened over the years. For instance, there's 4 stage productions that have happened. One of them was a rock opera out of Chicago. There's trading cards and video games and coloring books and other novels, and it's just turned into its own world, and I call it the Manos verse. And so the films like Manos Returns, which Tanya Atomic directed, and we all co-wrote it. But that film was intended to honor Manos. It wasn't intended to be a comedy or a parody. It's more a story of what would happen to this little girl who was kept by this polygamous cult and raised by them. Imagine what she would become when she grows up. So that's one universe, one direction that we went with that film. And then this new project that I'm on, the Manos Chronicles, is different people, a different script, a different universe. And the story in this one is what would happen if, imagine that Debbie escaped the cult as a child and she spent her life in hiding, and now she's decided she needs to get retribution in the world by helping others, by doing good in the world. Whereas in Manos Returns, I become the master, and I'm not a very pleasant human. As you would imagine, a child being raised by a crazy polygamous cult.
Being involved with something that did have a bad image, do you feel it made a current, even future impression for you as an artist? And do you think it has a little bit of a new definition within the horror genre, almost wedged in between, even though it didn't do so well on its initial release?
Yes, I mean, it's the fans who've helped me understand it. I did not understand why it was so popular, but I do. But people realize when they watch it, they see the intent. You know, they see how hard people were working. I mean, everybody was doing their best with a very limited budget, with a rented camera and film. I mean, the camera itself was Filmo 70, which was used for like Korean and Vietnam War footage. And it shot silent, so the movie had to be dubbed. It was a wind-up camera. Nobody had made a film before. I mean, if you're talking independent film, this was 1966 in El Paso, Texas, and this was a group of people who were connected through the local community theater. In fact, that year, my dad, who played the lead role of the Master, he won Best Actor of the Year for his role of Henry IV. So in that same year, I still have his statue that he got for that. So, you know, you had people with talent just in something that they had no experience with, and people recognize that. You know, they recognize the passion and the intent. And the other thing is, lots of people say, you know, they're going to make a movie, but how many actually get done? And people respect that too, is got done, and it got into a theater, and it had a really fancy premiere. There's a lot to that, plus that long gap of time where it disappeared and then it comes back. It gives people hope. There's just so many levels to it. And then, you know, I wrote a book about it called Growing Up with Manos, The Hands of Fate, how I was the child star of the worst movie ever made and lived to tell the story. Growing up, my dad remarried when I was 19, and he was married to the same woman for, you know, over 40 years, and in essence kicked me out of the family. She didn't like me. And for some reason, if a project was Manos related, she let my dad and I get together. And so I was more than happy to find opportunities and to accept opportunities that I could include him in or to talk to him about. And it really went a long way in a lot of healing within our own family. So there's just so many levels to this film. It's crazy. It's like magic sometimes. The people I've met and the things they say about how it affects their life, it's odd. It's almost a cult in itself, but in a very good way, very positive way.
Yeah, some cases, like, people would see it from a different view in terms of performance-wise, because being a part of something that wasn't really good and had such a really bad following at first, and that could seriously affect that artist on future work. Like, they'll look at that, they'll say, wow, really, you've been in that, and then they'll get mediocre work and not really express who they are as an artist. And you yourself have performed outside of the Manos universe. Having performed little to no budget films, would you consider this as the actual stepping stone toward the success of future films, or would you say that's more of a tool for yourself, or even as an example for the current horror community in terms of filmmaking?
I'm an artist first and foremost. I'm a writer, I'm an artist, I'm an actor. I'm doing like 7 projects at any one time. That's the attention deficit disorder. But I love to explore creativity and art in all directions, and so I would say that Manos has certainly given me the opportunity to explore more in film. I adored theater growing up, and when my dad was in theater, he was in many, many plays, but my dad was also an artist. I follow in his footsteps in a lot of ways. But when Manos took off, and he's actually the one that saw it on television the first time. I'd been looking for it for years, and then in 1993, my dad was watching MST, and he called me on the phone and said, "You'll never believe what I just saw on television." So that's how we found it again. But he always had a sense of humor about it. Me as a child, I could say, well, it wasn't my fault, I was just a kid. My dad, he just had such a great sense of humor about it, and when we did, it was for Manos Returns, I believe. It was the extended version or the extras, and we watched Manos together again for the first time and since the premiere, and I remember he says, "Oh my God," he goes, "this is awful." He goes, "No, really, this is terrible." But, he just had such a great sense of humor about it. And, I enjoy it. But, yeah, it's definitely been a stepping stone.
Did he also help you develop your character from that film after the Manos? Or was there a little bit of a different turn in direction in terms of between his craft and then your craft?
Oh, yeah, definitely different. We were so honored that he wanted to be part of Manos Returns and was willing to film. And during the writing of my book, I was able to find Diane Marie, who had played my mother in the original, and we were able to bring her out from Colorado to reprise her role as my mother, and we found the son of the original sheriff, and he became our sheriff in Manos Return, so it really became a family thing. We got everybody that I could find that was still alive.
Yeah, creating art that you do yourself, do you use that from future and past film work? Does that give you insight to create your art, or not just take the influence from it?
They all work together. It's hard to distinguish them apart, really. I would say, as far as acting, I've learned so much from another mutual friend of Michelle, Lisa Ovies, who runs an acting school and does amazing horror film. If you haven't talked to her, you certainly should. But she's in Vancouver, Canada, and if it weren't for COVID, I wouldn't have had the opportunity. But I took some of her online acting classes, and God, I learned so much, and learning about character development.
Do you want to still stick within the horror community and developing your own, or are you wanting to show a different image of how you want to see within that community?
Oh yeah, I'm interested in horror, but Primal Rage, for instance, well, that is a horror film, but the scenes I was in were not, and I was privileged. It's a Bigfoot film by Patrick McGee. I was honored to be a location coordinator for some of the scenes because of where I live in Western Oregon in the forest, and a mutual friend. But they came up here and we filmed a Native American ceremony in my backyard with my family, and it was really interesting and very cool. But yeah, I'm open to anything. I'd love to do comedy.
Go ahead and plug in any websites. Can you describe a little bit more about the Manos universe one more time that we can check out in the near future, or anything else that you care to add?
Yeah, let's see. Well, on Facebook, there's the Jackey Neyman Jones fan page, and a lot of stuff is channeling through there, and it's really active, and people are sharing things from all over the place. And then I just started a new website, Jackey's Manos. In fact, Jackey's Manos is kind of my key, so I have an Etsy store, YouTube. But check out the Manos Chronicles trailer on YouTube. And also, Dumb Industries is where I do my paint classes. So I'm doing online Mystery Science Theater related painting classes once a month, dumbindustries.com, and it's called Jackey Neyman Jones, The Hands of Paint.
There you have it, everybody. That is Jackey Raye Neyman Jones.
Thank you.